Well, yeehaw, as they say in rodeo circles. I've got Fred Doherty with me from the New Zealand Rodeo Cowboys Association, and he's one of the blokes who's brought the rodeo to Fielding for what is a grand final.
Yes, the national finals, and we're just so pleased to be here, Richard. So we've been looking forward to this all year, and it's going to be a great event.
Now, as a final, I'm presuming there's been a lot of preliminary events throughout the summer with the Cowboys and gals competing for finals places.
Yeah, well, that's right. The way our season works is that there's about 35 events throughout the country. We get underway at Labour Weekend in the South Island, Winchester and Methven in South Canterbury. And then the bulk of the events are through the Christmas, January, February period. And so the 35 events are all qualifying events towards our national finals. And how it works the world over with rodeo really is that the money that you win at these events go towards your tally, which is called the standings. And so when we get to the last event, which we held 3 weeks ago at Rodeo, the top 8 in each of our 7 events get invited to attend the national finals, and so that's what's happened. So this weekend is the pinnacle of the whole rodeo year, and like I said, the top 8 of the 7 events are here after 35 qualifying events, so we're very excited and very looking forward to this weekend.
That's a grueling schedule of events.
Yeah, well, of course, the contestants don't get to them all, but the ones that are taking it seriously certainly travel to as many of them as they can, and so it means a lot of trips up and down on aeroplanes, and of course the guys that are and the girls with the barrel racing horses and the time event horses, they've got to cart horses across the straight several times, and so like any sport, the people that are taking it seriously are right into it, and they live for rodeo, and that's what they do. And so we're just really looking forward to it. This is the pinnacle of the whole year.
Wow. And of course, rodeo has a long and venerable tradition in New Zealand. In fact, you could possibly say it was the very first of the extreme sports, even before that came about.
Well, I was going to say that we were holding extreme sports before they had invented the word. So that's what it's all about. It's adrenaline, and it's risk, and it's fear, and it's danger, and it's adrenaline, and that's what rodeo is all about. A guy pitting himself against a bull or a bucking horse, it's right out there. You're putting yourself right out there, and there's the risk of danger, and injury is there all the time, and I guess that's what makes it the way it is.
And do you have many injuries?
Thankfully, no. Given the potential for injury, thankfully there are very few serious injuries. It's mainly just bumps and bruises and aches and sprains, and yeah.
And you'd get that in a Super Rugby match.
Well, absolutely. It's just similar to that, I guess. Yeah.
And that's only in the stand.
It's only in the bar. Yeah.
Now you mentioned 7 events. What are the 7 events that your finalists are competing in?
Right. Well, we've got 7 events make up a rodeo. So we have 3 rough stock events. There's the saddle bronc and the bareback, which is the 2 horse bucking events. A guy on a bucking horse, and of course they're 2 completely different riding styles, so the bareback and the saddle bronc. And then we've got the bull ride, which is the iconic event of rodeo, bull riding. So that's the 3 rough stock events, and then we've got 4 timed events. So there's the rope and tie, which involves roping a calf with a lasso and then tying up its legs on the ground. That's one of them. The steer wrestling, which involves getting off your horse and grabbing the steer by its horns and twisting it down to the ground. And there's team roping, which involves roping the head and the heels of a steer and stretching it out on the ground like they did in the Wild West, to doctor an animal. And that's a neat event because we have husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends and mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and competing as a team, so that's a neat event. So that's up to 6. And the last one, of course, is the ladies only event, which is the barrel race, which involves galloping their horse round the 3 drums in a cloverleaf pattern. And that is one of the most popular events, the barrel racing. It always goes off well with the crowd.
So how many competitors nationwide are there in Rodeo?
We have a membership of about 800 or just a bit over 800. There's probably 500 contestant members in that, and the rest of them are non-contestant members and bits and pieces. So yeah.
And how many of those are really seriously competitive?
Well, on the day they all are, but yeah, but I know what you're saying. There's probably 300 or 400 of them you would say are serious at it. Yeah.
Now, the tradition, which is really strong, and I suppose it comes from our pioneering past, but we share that tradition with a number of other countries only.
Well, that's right. There's 4 main rodeo nations, which is America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, and probably in descending order just based on the size of the industry in each country, you see. So basically they're the 4 rodeo nations, and there are also rodeo in South America like Brazil and Argentina, but they're sort of not part of the 4, you might say, the big 4. So, and the rules are, the competing rules in all those 4 countries are just exactly the same. So our guys can go overseas and compete in Canada and Australia. They often not so much go to America. Canada's easier to get in and out of, and it's a wee bit more user-friendly, and so that's where they tend to go. A lot of our guys will go to Canada in the off-season. And so the riding rules, the contestant rules are exactly the same. So it means they can just step off the plane, and if you're a saddle bronc rider, they can just get on a saddle bronc horse, and it's just exactly the same. So yes, you're right. What you said at the start, you're right. It's a sport that was born out of work on the range, in America, and it just got made into a sport as cowboys boasted about their skills at riding a bucking horse, and so they had a contest. In much the same way you could say wood chopping or dog trialling is similar to that. You see, they're all sort of heritage sports, I guess, that are born out of workplace, and they've just been honed and been adapted into a sport. So that's basically what it's about. Yeah.
I like that term, a heritage sport.
Yeah, well, that's what we like to think ourselves at. And as I said, like a sport like wood chopping, like it's a skill that is no longer required really in the modern world, but yet the skill is kept alive through events, and that's what we like. I feel as an administrator of the sport, like I feel like I'm in charge of keeping our sport alive for future generations. So that's basically where we're at.
Well, the other big part of a rodeo event are the animals. Now, where do the animals come from? You've already mentioned people ferrying their horses backwards and forwards across the strait.
Yeah, well, we've got bucking horses and bucking bulls, obviously, and the time event cattle that we use, the steer wrestling steers and the roping calves, and at this level especially, but even at most rodeos now, we use what is called contract stock. In other words, they're just rodeo stock, and that's what they've been bred for, and that's just what they get used for. So. They're not like wild animals as such that have been run in as maybe it was in the original days. Now it's contract stock, and it surprises most people to know that a bucking horse isn't actually a wild horse. Like most of the contract stock, most of the bucking horses that will be on display used here this weekend will be able to be led and tied up and are quite are quite domesticated, you might say, and so they're not. It's not a good bucking horse isn't a wild animal, but it's just a horse that can buck really well. And so you get a rider on its back, it'll buck the house down, and then 5 minutes later it'll be standing back in its pen, and you could go up and put a halter on it and lead it onto the track. So. And the bulls similarly, like the bulls have been bred to buck, and they're very, usually they're quite docile animals. You'll see them in the pen before they get used; they'll just be dozing. And but once they get into the chutes and get their rider on, they know what they've got to do, and they just love bucking cowboys off, and they stand out in the arena snorting, and they just own the place. They're just great, and then they trot on out there, and they're back in their pen, and yeah, they've done their job.
From dozy bull to bulldozer.
Yeah. Righto. You said it, I didn't.
That fascinates me actually, that there's a whole, almost an industry around breeding stock for these events.
Yeah, well, and of course, as I said to you before about the Four Nations of rodeo, like it is huge business in America. Like they have massive breeding programs over there, and bucking stock like will get bought by contractors, bought and sold between contractors, and there's huge, tens of thousands of dollars worth, the price of a good bucking horse. And so yeah, like the world over it's the same, breeding programs to breed the best bucking stock you possibly can, but because of the size of our industry here, we're sort of on a lesser scale, but the principles are the same.
And how much do one of those bulls weigh, for instance?
They're getting up around the 1,000 kilos, some a bit less than that, maybe 700-800 kilos. So when you see one of those with a 65 kilo, because that's the other interesting thing. If you look at the bull riders, you'd expect a bull rider to be a great big muscly, big strong guy, but the bull riders are small, quite often just 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids, basically kids that are that would only weigh about 60 kilos or. And so when you put one of those against a 700 or 800 kilo snorting bull, it's a bit of an unfair contest. But so it's not so much strength as strength involved, but it's a hugely skillful thing, to be a good bull rider. Yeah.
having a good seat, a good sense of balance, and determination not to let go.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's all about balance and anticipation of where the ball's going to go and which way he's going to turn, and you've got to beat the ball to where he's going to go. So it's it's a hugely skillful thing.
And the other element, I suppose, are the rodeo clowns.
Yeah, well, we have sort of there's two classes of them now. We have what we call our bullfighters, and they're the guys that get in and protect the cowboys, and they quite often owe them a huge debt of gratitude, because when a bull throws them off and they hit the ground and they can be winded or injured, it's the bullfighters that get in there to distract the bull's attention and to take them away. So that's what they're there for. But most rodeos these days, and the finals, and with no exception, will also have a comedy clown, and he's just a funny man, and he dresses up with the garb and the bright coloured clothes, and he just entertains the crowd, fills in the gaps, and is just sort of an addition to the rodeo. So yeah, we have a comedy clown here as well. Brought him up from the South Island, in fact. So
some good old southern humour. How does one become a rodeo clown?
Usually, if you're no good at riding bulls. No, I shouldn't have said that, really. No, it's just an offshoot. Everyone has their niche, you know. Like I'm involved in administration, and you know, how did I get into doing that? Well, I don't know, but it's just everyone finds their niche, and we have announcers that will be rodeo announcers. We've got Neville Clark from up the coast a bit. So we've got guys that specialise in announcing, guys that specialise in clowning, the contestants. There's clubs, of course, as I said, the 35 clubs that hold events. They've each got their own committee of locals that put on the events. And then you've got, as I said, the board of directors that run the whole sport. So everybody finds their niche, but we're all just trying to achieve what we want to achieve. And this weekend is what it's all about. Our whole year, as I said, has been aimed towards this weekend. This is what it's all about. So.
And what are the attractions of the Manfeild Stadium for an event like yours?
Well, the great thing about it, of course, is the roof. You can't get away from the fact that rodeo is an outside sport usually, and we are at the risk of the elements, and so there's nothing worse for a club. Like I'm involved with my own local club down south, and there's nothing more frustrating than spending months planning an event and then you get a wet weekend or a wet day. Most of the events are just single day, you know, one day events. And so there's nothing more frustrating than getting rained out. So the beauty of taking it to somewhere like Manfeild is the fact that you've got a roof. So we've immediately taken the whole weather factor out of it. So it doesn't matter what it's doing outside, we can be inside running exactly the same show. The ground conditions are going to be safe and not wet and muddy, which is usually it isn't so much the cowboys that get affected, but it makes it unsafe because it's slippery for the stock. So as I said, the roof takes that whole thing out of it. So that's the main attraction of coming here. Plus, of course, we've got the Manawatu AMP Society have been involved with the local club in putting this event on. So there's some professionalism coming out there, and there's been a lot of promotion work done locally. And so, you know, we're pretty excited with what we're going to see this weekend.
And how did you get involved in rodeo?
Well, I had a go at riding bulls when I was young, a very, very limited go, I might add, at my own local event. But I guess it's an interesting story itself. I've got a small farm down south, and I actually got a rodeo ground on it, would you believe? So the Outram Rodeo, one of the 35 events that gets held in New Zealand, is held on my farm, and I'm a fourth generation on my little farm down there, and for 3 generations we've had the rodeo there. we've held our 52nd or 53rd or something. So it was actually, my grandfather was farming the land when the local club approached him to see whether they could hold a rodeo there, and he said yes. And then my father farmed, and now I'm farming it, and so we have our own rodeo ground there. So I was just involved at a local level, and you get involved with the local club down there, and I was club president and held a few offices and that sort of thing. And then a few years ago I became the National Secretary of the New Zealand Rodeo Cowboys Association, which was it's the only paid position. There's one paid position that we have, a paid secretary. So I was actually the National Secretary for 9 years, and then after I gave that up, I was, interested in and really enjoyed the administration side of it. So there was a position become vacant on the board of directors, and so I hopped in there as administration director. So we all just get off on doing what we do, and I just enjoy the whole organisation part of it, and just doing my little bit to run the events and keep the sport going.
The bucket, well, here he goes. Oh, jumping, kicking, look at the big fella. He's riding like he was designed to be there. Hey, here we are. Watch out. Lead off fight. Are you ready for a good fight? This could be it. All right, look at this fight. Oh boy, come on, Jono. Ride, ride, ride. You can do it, you can ride. It's going to happen. Yo, Joey. Hey, hey. He's gaining on you.
Simple, actually. You could probably get away with it most at home.
Got to get a mark out, remember, then he's got to go on with it. Here we are. Simon Ryan, going to lift on his bucket race. Here we are, jumping, kicking a good old bucket horse. Here he goes. Oh, he's going to make the whistle. Really tough. Whoa, there we are. Nice little bucket horse, ladies and gentlemen. Jumping, check little horse. Looks like he might have been designed to be a racehorse, but he obviously got some habits done. Don't need a self-defense. Won't have a racetrack. So our two judges. Now these judges, ladies and gentlemen, they have got what they have got.
What are the Cowboys competing for?
Well, basically, it's national titles this weekend, because there is, as I said, our 7 events, and each will, at the end of the weekend, each will have a title winner. So you will be saddle bronc champion or barrel race champion. So that's what they are competing for, the right to call themselves the national champion of their individual events. And for that, there will be about $30,000 in prize money at stake this weekend, so they get that as well. And then each of the title winners, as I said, get a buckle, which is, you've probably seen cowboys, they wear their trophies on their belt buckle. So and you see rodeo cowboys belt buckles, and if you have a look, it'll have the year and what they won their buckle for. So each of our 7 event champions will get a trophy buckle and a saddle, a nice carved saddle depicting the event and the year and all that sort of thing. So a trophy saddle. So that's what they're competing for this weekend.